Welcome to the debate. Today, we're diving into a tool that's really gained a lot of attention for transforming how we hold on to our information, Anki, and the spaced repetition method it uses. The big question we're tackling is this. Is Anki, a complete learning solution all by itself, covering everything about knowledge acquisition? Or is its real strength in just being incredibly efficient at memorization? Meaning it needs to be part of, a broader set of learning strategies. I'll be taking the position that Anki really does optimize and expand learning comprehensively, essentially making memory something you choose, which in turn unlocks higher thinking.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be arguing that, look, while Anki is fantastic, really exceptional for cementing memory and recall, its best use, its optimal effectiveness, comes when learners see it for what it is, a powerful part of a bigger picture, a learning strategy that has to prioritize, understanding things in context, applying knowledge actively, and really engaging with material in ways that go beyond just isolated flashcards.
Okay, so my position starts with how Anki is often described. It's not just flashcards, right? It's seen as a powerful, intelligent flashcard system. It's specifically built to make remembering easier. And it does this using spaced repetition, which fundamentally shifts memory from being this sort of haphazard event, as Michael Nielsen put it quite well, into a choice that guarantees you can recall something with, frankly, minimal effort. The algorithm behind it is absolutely key here. It dynamically schedules your reviews, so you spend more time on challenging material and less on what you already know. It hits you right when you're most likely to forget. But it's more than just the timing. Anki's features create a really adaptive learning space. You've got synchronization across all your devices. It supports rich media, audio, images, videos, even, scientific markup plus deep customization of how cards look and the review timings. It means it's incredibly adaptable. Pretty much any subject. It can handle, over 100,000 cards without breaking a sweat. And because it's open source, there's this whole ecosystem of add-ons, like FSRS. That's the free spaced repetition scheduler, which personalizes timing even more. This allows for some really complex workflows, whether you're learning a language intensively or diving into really specialized fields like medicine or even, surprisingly, procedural skills training. For me, the crucial insight is that the actual process of creating the flashcard is really what makes the information memorable. It's an active process that pushes knowledge into long-term memory.
Yeah, I definitely get the appeal of seeing memory as a choice, and nobody can argue with the efficiency Anki offers. But while I completely agree Anki is a powerful flashcard application designed to optimize your learning experience through spaced repetition, my view is that its core strength, its real power, is still primarily in helping with and extending memorization and recall. It isn't, by itself, a full learning environment that really cultivates deep understanding or the kind of nuanced skill development you need in many areas. I mean, think about what spaced repetition fundamentally does. It's best described, I think, as a good method for extending memory, for not forgetting something you already know. It's less about actively teaching something truly new from scratch, which some research seems to back up. Take language learning, for example. That's fundamentally about training skills, right? It's about learning how to communicate, navigate conversations, understand nuance, and that comes through practice. If you rely only on flashcards, you risk, robbing yourself of a deeper contextual meaning. And honestly, that can even erode motivation if learners aren't also engaging with the language more broadly, more authentically, like through lots of reading or immersion. Even if you look back at the history, Hermann Ebbinghaus's original experiments, which were groundbreaking, focused on memorizing nonsense syllables. That just highlights how effective it is for rote learning, but maybe less so for holistic conceptual understanding.
That's a fair point about the origins with nonsense syllables, but I'd argue that Anki's usefulness today goes way beyond simple rote stuff. When we talk about knowledge acquisition, it's not just isolated facts we're after. The program, as I mentioned, explicitly supports complex workflows, and there are some really compelling recent studies applying it to procedural skill acquisition. Think things like neurosurgery training. These aren't just small studies. They show significant improvements in objective performance metrics.
That strongly suggests Anki can help with acquiring practical, high-level skills, not just remembering the names of instruments, for example. Its ability to embed different media, use closed deletions, hiding parts of a sentence to test comprehension, and even structure arguments, like you see when people create detailed grammar cards, allows for developing conceptual and reflective learning skills within the flashcard environment itself. So in this view, Anki acts like a powerful backend for your memory. It takes care of the basic recall burden, freeing up your conscious effort to focus on the higher order thinking, the application. It really liberates cognitive capacity.
I'm sorry, but I just don't quite buy that it fundamentally teaches skills in the same direct way that, say, hands-on practice does. Anki certainly boosts recall, and okay, those neurosurgery results are interesting, I'll grant you that. But the bulk of research on spaced repetition has traditionally focused on memorizing facts. It really has not been applied to fields that required some manipulation or thought beyond simple factual semantic information until quite recently. My worry is whether the benefit you see in things like math problems or surgical skills is really Anki teaching the skill itself, or is it just improving the recall of the component facts or procedures that then make it easier to perform the skill through other learning methods? Flashcards are great. Absolutely excellent for nailing that form-meaning connection for individual bits of information. But that doesn't just magically translate into use in a fast-moving real-world situation.
I mean, knowing every single word in a dictionary doesn't make you fluent in conversation, does it? Because that doesn't teach you the flow, the implicit grammar, the cultural context. Real understanding, especially in complex fields, needs varied experiences with words in broader contexts. Research suggests you might need anywhere from 7 to 30 exposures in different contexts for a word to really become part of your active vocabulary. That goes beyond even the best isolated flashcard review. So, yeah, Anki can build a strong scaffold of memorized info, but the scaffold isn't the building.
But isn't that exactly my point about freeing up cognitive capacity? Look, imagine a medical student. Through really diligent Anki use, they've absolutely nailed every drug interaction, every anatomical detail, every symptom pattern. Their mind is then completely free, isn't it? Free to focus on the complex, adaptive problem-solving needed for a unique patient case right in front of them. They aren't sitting there struggling to remember basic facts. They're integrating and applying them. Those neurosurgery examples, they show improved performance, not just better recall of names. That implies that by cementing the foundational knowledge so thoroughly, Anki removes a huge chunk of cognitive load. It lets the brain engage more deeply with precisely the manipulation and thought you mentioned. Look, nobody's claiming Anki replaces the operating room or the clinic, but it significantly streamlines the path to expertise by making that core knowledge instantly available. It empowers the learner. They master the raw data so they can then operate at that higher level of synthesis and application.
Okay, I do see the argument about cognitive load. And yes, it's a strong one, but the distinction between enabling higher-order thinking by offloading recall and directly fostering that thinking or the skill itself, well, that distinction feels critical to me. If Anki's main job is ensuring perfect recall of facts that then allow other learning to happen more smoothly, doesn't that, by definition, place it as a component? A vital component maybe, but still part of a larger learning system, rather than the whole solution? It's like a powerful engine, sure, but an engine needs a car around it. You mentioned the process of creating the flashcard being valuable, and I agree. But that act of creation, that's a learning activity separate from the space repetition review itself, isn't it? The benefit comes from active recall during creation and review, yes. But the richness of understanding, the context, usually comes from outside sources that you then feed into Anki.
Well, that actually leads us nicely into our second point of disagreement, the role of context and active application. I believe Anki can facilitate this deeply, not just supplement it. If you use it strategically, Anki absolutely lays down that solid memory foundation. And by doing that, it frees up the cognitive bandwidth for deeper contextual application that, crucially, can be integrated into the cards themselves. Think about it. You can include example sentences, relevant pictures, audio clips, custom tags maybe, tag words as hard, or link info to chapter 1 of a textbook. This allows for incredibly rich context right there on the flashcard. And the open source community aspect is important too. People share highly contextualized decks, but more importantly, the tool really encourages you to make your own cards. That act of creation ensures personal relevance and, as you hinted, deeper engagement. So once that foundational memory is solid, it genuinely empowers users to apply information confidently in the real world. Because integrating new learning becomes easier when the context can actually be part of the recall cue on the card.
I guess I come at context from a slightly different angle, thinking more about the quality and spontaneity of it. While Anki can certainly put context on a card, you hear this all the time from Anki users themselves. It's primarily a supplement. It's not a replacement for getting your hands dirty, for active, organic engagement with the actual material. The common advice is always, after you memorize something with Anki, you need to use that information in a practical way that benefits your life. And there's a real difference, isn't there? Recalling a word on a flashcard, even one with a great example sentence, is just not the same as knowing what it means instantly in the middle of a fast conversation or when you're just skimming a book trying to get the gist. The idea that words without context don't really have meaning holds a lot of weight.
Many times in many different contexts, natural, varied, sometimes messy contexts, that you truly learn its nuances, how it's actually used. In fact, many people argue that the best spaced repetition you can do is reading or just engaging with full native sentences in real materials. Why? Because it naturally gives you that deeper, multi-layered context. It embeds grammar, sentence structure, all implicitly without you having to explicitly target them for memorization. Anki's context, however rich you make it, is always going to be somewhat curated, somewhat isolated by the flashcard format itself. It just can't replicate the organic complexity of applying knowledge out there in the wild.
I think saying Anki's context is inherently isolated just because it's on a card is maybe a bit unfair. The point is the depth of context you can build in. If I'm making a card for, say, a complex medical procedure, it won't just have the name. It'll have diagrams, maybe short video clips, key decision points, notes on potential complications, mnemonics, all designed to recall the contextualized knowledge needed for that step. The power lies in bringing that rich context into the review process, making sure that the form-meaning connection isn't just abstract, but embedded in a practical framework. And yes, reading is incredibly powerful. I absolutely agree. But Anki ensures you don't forget those specific, critical pieces of information, maybe high-frequency terms or crucial concepts that you encounter during your reading. It acts as a retention safety net for the context you've already gathered elsewhere.
That initial exposure to long-term mastery.
I appreciate that bridge analogy, and I do agree Anki is potent for consolidating knowledge you get from other places. The distinction I keep coming back to, though, is that Anki optimizes the retention of information, including contextualized bits, but it doesn't create the original rich, multifaceted context in the same way that immersive experiences, like actually using the language, or working through a complex problem set, or reading widely do. The examples on your cards, however good, are still, necessarily, a selection of context. They just can't fully replicate the dynamic, sometimes surprising understanding that emerges when you navigate a tricky situation, or figure out an unknown word from its surroundings in a brand new sentence, or really wrestle with a long, difficult text. It's those deeper, organic interactions that truly build robust mental models and the ability to adapt your understanding. Anki is brilliant at shoring up the foundations built by that interaction, absolutely. But it isn't the interaction itself. The real challenge often lies in moving from just recognizing something on a card to being able to fluidly recall and apply it without prompting in a new situation. And that often requires those many different contexts that Anki, just by its nature, has to filter down.
Okay, let's pivot then to the user experience, the efficiency question, and maybe some of those potential downsides people talk about. From my side, Anki is widely, and I think rightly, praised for its incredibly efficient algorithm. Its whole purpose is to help users maximize how long you can remember something with the least amount of work. The desktop version, which generally offers extra features and arguably the best user experience because of all the customization, combined with the constant improvements from that active open source community like FSRS we mentioned, that adaptive scheduler, it really makes Anki a powerful long-term investment for learning. And its cost effectiveness is hard to beat. It's free on desktop and just a one-time purchase on mobile. That makes it incredibly accessible for genuine lifelong learning. You can keep up consistent, low-effort reviews for decades without ongoing costs. It ensures the learning journey is sustainable, both time-wise and financially, for anyone serious about deep retention.
That's a very strong case for its efficiency and accessibility, no doubt. But have you really considered that the very customization Anki offers, the thing that makes it so powerful for some, can also be a major pitfall? It's not uncommon for users to, well, get obsessed with Anki and becoming a well-rounded, knowledgeable person. This can easily lead to burnout, either from trying to manage way too many cards or getting lost in the urge to fuck with the settings, spending more time optimizing Anki than actually learning the material. And the day-to-day experience, especially early on, it might not always feel like it's helping in the day-to-day. The really profound effects often only become obvious over months and years. That delayed gratification can be tough, potentially demotivating. Plus, inconsistent use, which, let's be honest, is a common struggle for learners with any tool, completely will undermine the algorithm's effectiveness. It breaks the core promise.
For newcomers, Anki's interface often feels complicated, and making good, effective cards, that's time-consuming. It requires skill. This sometimes pushes people towards using pre-made decks, which might not fit their specific needs or, frankly, be of high enough quality or provide sufficient context. And one more thing, the rating system itself. Again, hard, good, easy. That adds a layer of cognitive load, doesn't it? You have to constantly judge your own memory state, which might actually get in the way of the simple recall process, especially when you're just starting out.
I definitely acknowledge those potential downsides exist, but I tend to see many of those pitfalls not as inherent flaws in Anki itself, but more as challenges related to, well, user discipline, maybe lack of guidance, or simply individual learning styles. Anki offers a flexible framework. It doesn't force users to obsess over settings or create an unmanageable card load. There's a huge amount of guidance available from the community on best practices, how to avoid burnout, how to make effective cards. That cognitive load from the rating system, I'd argue it's pretty minimal once you get used to it. And actually, that little bit of metacognitive reflection, thinking about how well you know something, is precisely what helps strengthen the learning. It forces you to evaluate your own understanding. Look, a perfectly sharp chef's knife is dangerous if you don't know how to use it, right? Anki's power similarly requires skillful application. It's a high-performance tool. And like any tool like that, it needs a degree of learner agency, some commitment to really unlock its benefits. We shouldn't necessarily blame the tool for user error or lack of strategy.
While I agree user agency is absolutely key in any learning, I think a truly comprehensive learning solution should also be designed in a way that minimizes common friction points and is inherently user-friendly. The very freedom of customization in Anki, while a strength for experts, puts a really heavy burden on the average user. You essentially have to become an expert not just in your subject, but also in spaced repetition theory and effective instructional design for flashcards. That steep learning curve, combined with the very real potential for burnout from endless card creation or overwhelming review queues, these aren't just isolated user errors. They are common, predictable friction points that can stop Anki from being a truly standalone, universally accessible solution for all aspects of learning for most people.
If the tool's design, however unintentionally, encourages habits that lead to exhaustion or inconsistent use for a significant number of users, that does impact its claim to be a comprehensive long-term solution on its own. It's a powerful memory enabler, absolutely, but for it to truly cover all learning needs, it would need to be more intuitive in fostering deep understanding and application without carrying such a significant risk of self-sabotage through misuse or sheer overwhelm.
Deliberate choice. This isn't just opinion. It's backed up by its sophisticated algorithm, its deep customization, and its proven applicability across a huge range of knowledge types, from basic facts right up to complex procedural skills, as we've seen in demanding fields. In my view, Anki provides an absolutely essential foundation. It frees up our limited cognitive resources, allowing us to focus on higher-order thinking and real application.
And I've emphasized that while Anki is, without doubt, an exceptional tool for strengthening memory and recall, its true power, its optimal use, comes when learners see it as a vital but specialized component within a broader, more comprehensive learning strategy. A strategy that has to prioritize understanding things in context, actively using knowledge in varied, organic ways, and engaging with material far beyond even the most detailed flashcards. So while it boosts memory incredibly well, it doesn't on its own provide that holistic environment needed for truly deep, flexible, adaptive learning.
Yeah, I think we agree that the line between a powerful memorization engine and a truly complete all-in-one learning solution is, well, it's nuanced. Recognizing that difference, seeing where Anki shines and where it acts as incredibly strong support, that's really key to getting the most out of its immense benefits, no matter what subject you're tackling.
Exactly. We've explored how Anki really does make a significant impact on learning, and also how important it is to think carefully about how it fits into that bigger picture of acquiring knowledge. There's certainly always more to explore in the research around this and how learning technologies like Anki continue to evolve.